Queen Elara was a good queen. She lived in a big castle. The kingdom was named Eldoria. It was a land of green hills and wide flowing rivers. Elara had a kind heart. She cared for all her people. She wanted them to be happy. She was smart and thoughtful. Her husband was King Theron. He was the ruler of Eldoria. At least that was his title. He wore a heavy gold crown. He sat on the high throne. People bowed when he passed by, but King Theron was not strong. He did not like to make hard choices. He preferred feasts and hunting. Eldoria was a beautiful land, but it had some problems. Sometimes harvests were small, sometimes traders were unfair. The king did not see these things, or if he did not act. He hoped problems would go away. Queen Elara saw everything. She worried about her kingdom. Elara and Theron were married young. Their marriage joined two families. It was meant to bring peace. Elara hoped to be a good partner. She hoped Theron would be a great king, but soon she saw the truth. The king was not a leader. Eldoria needed someone strong, someone wise to guide it. Queen Elara watched King Theron. She watched him in the throne room. She saw him with his advisors. He often looked confused, or he looked bored by their talk. He would sigh and tap his fingers. He did not listen carefully. He wanted meetings to end quickly. This was not good for Eldoria. One day, a farmer came. His fields were flooded badly. He needed help from the king. King Theron listened for a moment. Then he waved his hand. "Fix it yourself," he said. He did not ask any questions. He did not offer any help. The farmer left sad and worried. Elara felt a pang in her heart. Another time, two nobles argued. They shouted in the great hall. They both wanted the same piece of land. King Theron did not know what to say. He told them to stop shouting. Then he said he was tired. He left the room quickly. The nobles were still angry. The problem was not solved. Elara saw these things often. She saw the king's weakness. He could not make decisions. He could not solve problems. He was afraid of being wrong, so he did nothing at all. The kingdom needed a steady hand. King Theron's hand was not steady. Elara knew this with a heavy heart. King Theron made a poor choice. He wanted a new summer palace. It would cost a lot of gold. The kingdom did not have extra gold. The royal treasurer told him this. He showed the king the empty chests. But King Theron did not listen. "Build it," he commanded loudly. The people would pay more taxes. The people were not happy. They already paid many taxes. They worked hard for their money. Now they had to pay even more. For a palace the king did not need. Whispers started in the towns. Whispers started in the villages. The king does not care for us. He only cares for himself. The king's advisors were worried too. They met in secret rooms. They spoke in low voices. "The king is leading us to ruin. His choices are not wise. What can we do?" they asked. But they were afraid to speak up, afraid of the king's anger, or afraid of losing their jobs. Queen Elara heard the whispers. She saw the worried faces. She knew the people were suffering. She knew the advisors were scared. The kingdom was like a ship in a stormy sea, and the captain was not steering. Elara felt a great sadness, but also a growing strength inside. One cold winter, sickness came. It spread through Eldoria quickly. Many people became very ill. They needed medicine and care. The royal healers were overwhelmed. They asked King Theron for help. They needed more supplies. They needed more healers sent out. The king said it was too costly. He told them to do their best. He stayed warm in his castle. He did not visit the sick. He did not seem to understand. Queen Elara could not bear it. She saw children suffering. She saw families in despair. This was the moment she decided. She knew she had to act now. Elara felt a pull in two ways. She was loyal to her husband. He was the king, chosen by law. But she was also loyal to her people. They needed her protection. They needed her wisdom. Her duty to Eldoria was greater. She had to choose her people. Her heart told her this was right. She would be clever and careful. She could not oppose the king openly. That would cause too much trouble. Instead, she would work quietly. She would use her mind. She would find ways to help. She began to study late at night. She read books about laws. She learned about trade and money. Queen Elara started very small. She began to speak to King Theron. She spoke when he was relaxed, perhaps after a good meal. She would offer a small idea. "My dear," she might say gently, "perhaps this could help the farmers." She made it sound like his idea. She did not ask for any credit. King Theron was often surprised. Her ideas sounded good. They sounded simple and easy. He did not like hard work, honestly. If Ilara's way was easier, he agreed. "Yes, that is a fine thought," he would say. "I was just thinking that myself." Ilara would smile sweetly. She let him believe it was his plan. Ilara also talked to the advisors, the ones she knew were wise, the ones who loved Eldoria. She shared her thoughts with them. She asked for their opinions. Together they made good plans. Then the advisors would present them. They would say, "The king wishes this." It was a careful, quiet game. Slowly things began to change. A difficult tax was lowered a little. A small bridge was repaired. Seeds were given to poor farmers. These were not big changes, not at first anyway. But they were important steps. King Theron felt very clever. He thought he was a great ruler. One of Ilara's first ideas, really helped the farmers. The land near the Silver Stream River would flood almost every spring, and this ruined so many young crops. Ilara read about ancient canals and suggested digging small channels to carry the water away. The king agreed it was a good test, so he sent workers to dig. When the next spring came, the river rose, but those new channels worked perfectly. The water flowed away safely. The fields weren't badly flooded, and the farmers had a good harvest. Actually, they had more food than before. The farmers thanked the king for his wisdom, and King Theron smiled proudly, while Ilara just smiled quietly in the background. Then Ilara, she turned her attention to the markets. Some merchants were cheating people, using false weights for goods, and poor people lost precious money because of it. Ilara suggested a new law. All market weights must be checked by a royal inspector. If a merchant cheated, they would pay a fine. The king thought this was fair, and pretty soon trade became more honest. People got what they paid for, they trusted the markets again, and even small traders felt safer since they weren't bullied by bigger ones. The markets became busy and bright, which was another quiet victory. A victory for Queen Ilara and, honestly, for the people of Eldoria. Life in Eldoria slowly got better. Food was just a little more plentiful, taxes were a little fairer, and small problems were actually being solved. The common people began to feel it. They didn't always know why, but they felt a new hope. Folks started talking to each other, saying things like, "Things are not so bad now." Some people, were very observant. They saw Queen Ilara more often. She sometimes walked in the city, spoke kindly to everyone and asked about their lives. She listened to their worries, and people noticed her thoughtful eyes and her quiet strength. They began to wonder about her. Stories started to spread like seeds. A story about the Queen helping a sick child, a story about her settling a dispute, and a story about her clever idea for new wells. These stories were told by firesides and sung by travelling minstrels. People would say, "The Queen has a good heart, and the Queen is very wise." Folks started to believe these things. Trust in King Theron was low, but trust in Queen Ilara grew. It grew like a strong young tree. They saw her quiet work, they felt its good effects, and they knew she cared about them. People started to see her not just as the king's wife, but as a leader in her own right. With her quiet power growing, Ilara aimed even higher. She noticed that many children couldn't read, and she knew how important knowledge was. So she spoke to the royal scribe asking, "Could we not have more schools, and/or teachers who travel to villages?" She found funds for this by cutting waste from the king's grand projects. Soon, more children were learning their letters. Justice in Eldoria was often slow, and sometimes, honestly, it wasn't fair. Rich men could bribe judges while poor men had little chance. Ilara worked with honest judges to write down clearer laws and set up new courts where fairness was the rule. People began to trust the law again. Eldoria also needed better roads. Good roads helped traders travel, helped news spread faster, and of course, helped soldiers move if needed. Ilara planned new routes and organized workers to build them. Strong bridges were built over rivers, and granaries were built to store grain, which really helped during lean years. the kingdom truly began to change. It became more prosperous, more peaceful. People worked hard and felt secure, knowing their queen was watching and working for them. King Theron still wore the crown and sat on the throne, but everyone knew who truly ruled. King Theron was happy too. He liked being popular, but he didn't realize why. He thought it was all his doing. He enjoyed the feasts and parades and didn't really worry about ruling, since Elara managed everything so well. He became a king in name only, a figurehead for the kingdom. The people of Eldoria loved Queen Elara. They cheered when she passed by, brought her flowers and gifts, small gifts made with their own hands. They called her Elara the Wise, or our good Queen Elara. Her name was spoken with respect and deep affection. She was their true protector. Even the nobles and advisors agreed. They saw Elara's skill and dedication, and they came to her for decisions. Her word became the law, not because she forced it, but because everyone trusted her. Her wisdom guided Eldoria. Her strength protected it. So Queen Elara ruled her kingdom, not with a loud voice or a show of power, but with a clever mind and a compassionate heart. She brought peace and happiness, and she made Eldoria strong and fair. Queen Elara was loved by all and respected as the true ruler.